Man, GoPro footage just looks so much better today than it did a few years ago. No oscillations or nothing like that. Quads have finally really turned the corner lately. So it seems like with the release of the TANGO2, I'm getting a lot more questions about Crossfire in general. I did a really good, I feel, easy explanation video on what all of these numbers mean. So you might want to watch the video I'm going to link up here before you watch this video, because it's going to cover a lot of that stuff. And there's some real interesting test results running the TBS Nano diversity module for Crossfire. And I know a few people have commented about the whole link quality discussion, the scaling 100 to 300 when you're in 150 Hertz mode and when you're in 50 Hertz mode. I would encourage everybody to first of all look at the TBS manual, but the verbiage in there is kind of confusing. I think the best explanation of the whole link quality thing would come from Oscar Liang himself. If you just do a Google search for RSSI TBS Crossfire, he goes down through here and explains everything pretty good when it comes to all that stuff, how to set it up in your Betaflight OSD, which is really important for some people if you're running 4.1 or 4.0. But the biggest takeaway that you're going to see is that Crossfire runs between 300 and 200. It means 150 Hertz mode. And if it's at 100 link quality, then you're in 50 Hertz mode. And below that, you go into 4 Hertz mode. And the reason why they scale it up to 300 is a normal radio receiver runs at 50 Hertz. I guess maybe that's what S-Bus runs at. So 3 times S-Bus speed, 150, they just scaled it up to 300%. But this is pretty good here. Some people were putting some stuff up in the comments that I just don't agree with, but I wanted to address that. So here we go. We have the 7-inch Source 1 with the diversity installed. I have an Immortal T up here and an Immortal T back here. I used to have a single Immortal T right here. Now, if you want to see how this performed with the single vertical mounted Immortal T, you can check out the video that I'll link up here, which is the first range test we did at 250 milliwatts with the TANGO2. This performed fine. There was plenty of room to go as far as reception goes, according to our SNR numbers. Watching some live streams, some old stuff from Trappy when the diversity module came out, I decided to mount the antennas this way, mostly because I don't need a vertical and a horizontal type of antenna, because on long range type of flights, you're really just kind of doing this. You know, you're not really flippy floppy and doing all that kind of stuff. So I'm not worried about cross polarizing. So we'll have all the antennas on the same plane. Now our nulls are actually the same as well, which was, I thought, a concern, but after the testing, at least for my flying conditions, hasn't been that much of a concern at all. And diversity or not, I think the biggest takeaway from this video is get your antennas out away from the quad. Horizontally on the arms as far as you can, or vertically all the way up where nothing is blocking any of the antenna. Now, some people might disagree, many people will agree, but I feel even that extra 2 inches on this rear antenna right here, or 1.5 inches, would make a huge difference in performance, how this thing is working. We saw it on the Flight 1 video that I'll put a link up here for. You can see how much of a difference it made. I'm tempted to even just unplug one of the antennas from this and fly it and see how good it does with just the antenna all the way out on the end of a 7-inch arm away from anything. Of course, when we turn around, we're gonna have all that stuff in the way, but I think it will work just a lot better. Video actually is turning into the concern, which is odd considering I have the up to 2 watt Pro 32 built into there. So I'm not 100% sure that I am sold on this long Axie 2 antenna. I typically fly with the Ion V2s, but as we have seen in those previous videos, if you're flying back towards yourself, going through all of this carbon and electronics and everything really can impact performance. The old Crossfire that I had, you could crank the power up to 1 watt, 2 watt, kind of get past all that. Well, you really don't need it, especially if you're running diversity. This ran so well that I would also consider adding diversity even to a regular 5-inch freestyle, especially with the new antennas that Alex has just came out that are super light. If they could be extended and placed out onto the arms, we could have a full 360-degree diversity system built into a 5-inch with very little weight, but we would get so much more performance out of it. So let's go and take a look at the flight footage, and we'll talk through this stuff slowly, frame by frame in some cases, and just all of the amazing results that I was seeing. So just to set the boundaries here, 250 milliwatt fixed power, everything running in a horizontal plane. You can see our link quality at 300, our RSSI, and our signal to noise ratio. So despite what people say, we are going to assume a link quality of 300 at 150 Hertz, which is what I like to call super crossfire mode, and anything at 150 Hertz. So in between there, we're flying at super crossfire mode at 100 Hertz, and below we are not. So the biggest thing right off the bat is that typically about right here on the ship before with the vertical orientation, I would drop down to 50 Hertz mode. So the link quality would drop to 100. And you see it bouncing around a little bit. It just hit 100, then it recovered, back to 300, back to 100 again. And you're going to see it throughout the flight that it is going to maintain or switch back and forth between the two. In the old one, without the diversity or without the antenna mounted all the way back on the arm, like in the vertical position, it was no chance. It always stayed at 50 Hertz, 100 link quality. So we just passed our 1 kilometer that we did on our test the other day, and we're going to fly out to a little past a mile. I could have went further if I would have went higher. The video was starting to get bad, but there's a highway out there. This is about as far as I'm going to fly in this limit. Just flying up the road here for easy recovery. We can see that we have good RSSI. We have a good signal to noise ratio. You know, we can fly that number down to -12. Right now it's sitting in the 20s, bouncing back and forth to the 30s. And then once we hit a mile out here at like 5280 or whatever, gonna spin around and you'll see things just kind of dip for a second. No like glitches when I was flying that I could feel or anything like that. But you could see that we definitely went to 50 Hertz mode. We pushed it a little bit too far and things just couldn't recover. Video went bad, went a little bit higher, up to about 250 feet there. And then gonna fly back in here, and I'm actually gonna dip to the left. So when I fly across this field to the left, all of the null zones of the antennas are going to be pointing at us. So you can see we just recovered back to the 300 link quality, dipping back down again. But like I said before, there was just no chance of this ever before. I don't know if it's the diversity or the antenna mounting. I'd have to say that probably it comes down to antenna mounting and conditions, just because we're not putting no more power at it, and it can only use one antenna at a time. And typically the quad would be flying away from me right now, so I would have that antenna facing at me anyway, because I always put mine on the rear right if the quad is facing away from you. So now we're flying back towards my house. You can see the home area where I'm at. We're about a half mile away, and things are, you know, again, dipping in and out of 100 Hertz, 150 Hertz mode and 50 Hertz. Everything is just rock solid. Loving the way that this quad feels in the air. Man, I don't really have a bug to fly super long range, especially this time of year. That field is probably like 2 feet of mud. I'd probably pass out trying to go back there and get the whole thing, walking through that muck. But wow, does it just feel good and fly good. And you know, if I take off the screen here, and if you want to take a look at the GoPro footage, which I'm actually voicing over this, so I can't, but you know, there's no hyper smooth on this. I mean, this is just GoPro Hero 7 on a really good tuned and filtered quad, custom tuned and filtered, working with the Black Box guys on Facebook months ago when I first got this. So I think this is running Betaflight 4.03, the target for the Radix, of course. That's why we're getting all the extra OSD stuff, like the little home arrow location, and the little H that just kind of spins and flies around where you're at and everything like that. But it's just fantastic, man. I love it. I definitely recommend the diversity. If you're gonna do long range, just throw a diversity in it. Like, I never really thought it was needed because I was just pumping out so much power with Crossfire all the time. But it really does just make things better because, you know, you can fly in this 150 hertz mode for a lot better, even though for a lot longer, even though you might not necessarily feel the change. Just knowing that your quad is getting its optimum performance just makes you feel good. You know, you spend so much time working on them and tuning them and making videos and stuff. It's just one thing that you can control. You know, you can control that you're going to have a good link, so why not do it? So I know some people are going to be like, oh, it's diversity. Of course that's what it's supposed to do. You're supposed to get just better power and everything else like that. And I see the point, but I did not expect to be able to carry Mode 2 out that far and for it consistently just to be in Mode 2 all the time. No matter what configuration of an antenna that I've ran on any of my ships, whether it be vertical, horizontal, whatever, it has worked great. I would have to say that I'm kind of sold on horizontal mounting now compared to vertical. The video I did with the Flight 1 I'll put up here performed super well with the antenna out on the arm versus the 7-inch with the vertical position. So it just must be getting ate up by that carbon. And it brings me back to an old video that Jet and Stingy and Gab did, where they were running their Immortal T's on the front of their 399s. So you would always reach your limit of what you can do on the way out, and then they knew that they could get home because everything was facing them at that point. Well, with diversity, we don't have to worry about that. And then we also get the added bonus of having super high frame rate, low latency, and everything just working perfectly. So I hope this was a good example for you guys. Thanks a lot for all your continued support. Please like, subscribe. We'll talk to you guys later.